This episode of Wrestle Update is dedicated to the memory of Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk. Our thoughts and prayers are with their fans, friends, and families. What's up, people? Welcome to Wrestle Update. I'm Dylan Fox, and today we are going to a very, very special episode because this is a direct idea of my co-host and friend, Nello, who's here. GCW, you brought it to us, you brought it to me, the people right now.
Yeah, just like Jeff Jarrett putting New Japan on pay-per-view, here I am to debut GCW on Wrestle Update.
Hey, listen. The idea at the start was WWE and AEW, but there was no rule that said we can't talk about other promotions. Obviously, every promotion, whether it's the big companies or the indie companies, they all have value, and especially this one, GCW, if you're not aware of them, they are a company that has really gotten a lot of buzz over the years. And I've watched these shows talk about. Clearly, the deathmatch element is big, like a big part of the company. Even not as much maybe as CZW in the old days, where it was like super prominent. This is prominent too, but they have a little bit of everyone. They're very in tune in Japan. They're kind of that successor to that ECW style. I think they particularly want it to be that way, to where they're clearly a successor to ECW in the past, and taking it to an even more extreme level with the CZW stylings, and all kinds of interesting people they bring in from all across the country. You may have heard that John Moxley from AEW had wrestled here before. They have a lot of different styles, a lot of Lucha influence too on the shows. Again, very much similar to that ECW vibe, kind of. Would you say that's the correct way to describe ECW?
Yeah, definitely the bastard child of ECW. You know, they've done so much ECW branded stuff, from just merch bootlegs to even, running Hammerstein Ballroom. So that's very much, I feel like, their OG inspo and all that. Yeah, they were, okay, so if anyone's listening and I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me, but to the best of my knowledge, they started off in 2015 when Nick Gage was still in prison, or I'm pretty sure, and Brett started it after leaving CZW to kind of build something for Nick to come back when he got out of jail. Their first show being the inaugural Nick Gage Invitational. Back then, I'm pretty sure it was Brett and Danny DeMonto. Eventually they split, and then that's when Danny started ICW No Holds Barred. But I would say around in 2019, Spring Break 3. Spring Break 2 was very, very, I would say kind of what put them on the map initially in terms of national exposure, with the PCO versus Walter match. I feel like that was the first time that one of their matches had an actual effect on the landscape of wrestling, with the whole, this introduced Walter to a lot of crazy people. It sort of introduced the concept of spring break and this stoner fantasy wrestling book, stoner fantasy, wrestling show that was booked at 2 a.m. during WrestleMania weekend. You had Minoru Suzuki versus Matt Riddle that weekend, all that stuff. But after that, I feel like they've just kind of been on that ascent, capitalizing at that Hammerstein Ballroom show a couple years ago or 2 years ago in January. And then, I would say they kind of plateaued there. And since they've just been doing their own thing, but now rather than, North American stuff as much, they're branching out a lot into international. They just did an exploding barbed wire death match in Tijuana. They've done multiple tours of Japan, and they're going to be doing their own Korakuen Hall show for the first time in October. They're in Australia this week. They're in England again pretty soon. So they travel, I would say, as much as any top, company does, if not more, which is pretty crazy for an independent. But they're a traveling circus. I mentioned before on the call, but to me, they're very much the American translation of DDT in terms of variety, whether it be comedy, violence, extreme violence, main event wrestling. Honestly, that might be the one thing GCW is significantly missing, but whatever. But yeah, they've always felt kind of like DDT to me. And I actually was at their collective weekend at Mania this year in LA, and them and DDT had a joint show, and they just gel so well. I think, maybe not so much like the direct translation of the genres of wrestling, but their mind about it, their approach to it, and how anything can really be wrestling, right? Like the Invisible Man match at a Spring Break to Yoshihiko at Peter Pan or whatever. There's that love for the chaotic and the creative.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. You did mention it. I did see that show, actually, because I'd said before that I hadn't watched GCW in a long, long time, but I actually did watch that DDT show with the GCW over the weekend, now that you bring it up. So I will say to everybody right now that I really was not a fan of GCW coming in at all. I haven't watched it in a long time, like I said, outside of those WrestleMania weekend shows, because they have branched off, I will say, on the WrestleMania shows where you have all kinds of different styles. Bloodsport is a GCW adventure, part of that collective, for the culture and all of that. They did a lot of great shows and made them kind of a tradition for WrestleMania weekend over the years. And obviously Spring Break was kind of like, that was a revelation when it started. And it's just continued to go on and grow every year. But long story short, not to overtalk everybody, but I'm not super familiar with any storylines or anything really going on here. I wanted to do the show because Nello wanted to be honest with you. And then I ended up getting both of these shows and checking them out. And I have to say that there's some stuff where I thought, okay, yeah, this is what I expected. But then there was some stuff where I was like, hey, this is by the end of it, I came in with a better grasp of the company, I would say. And maybe my own expectations were kind of low, maybe you could say. But by the end of it, I enjoyed myself more than I thought I would, in all honesty. So I got to give them a lot of credit right off the gate here. This is, of course, we're talking about GCW Homecoming. 2 shows. They took place from Jersey, Atlantic City. You had Emil J. and Dave Prazak. I really had no idea Prazak was on these shows, to be honest with you. Beforehand, I knew about Emil J. and Prazak's somebody I've known and respected for so many years. Obviously, he was kind of like the mastermind behind Shimmer, which is was the preeminent women's company in America. American Joshi, they called it. I brought in all kinds of cool people from then, and you see it right away on the show here. This whole outfit when it comes to GCW, it's very different from your mainstream companies, whether it's your AEW or WWE, just right away, just the production of it, pretty much. But it's also different to maybe like Evolve was, a company that I followed for a long time, an indie company back in kind of that golden era, so to speak, of the indies. It's really got its own vibe to it. And that's kind of what I was looking for going in. I was like, okay, when I think of GCW, I'm thinking, and kind of like DDT, what you said as well, too, I'm not necessarily going towards there for, Arisa Nakajima and Sorry that I watched over the weekend, which was an absolutely fantastic match. If you have any interest in Japanese wrestling, please watch that match because it's so good. But I'm not going there for that. I'm going for vibes at the end of the day. That's what they specialize in. That's what they do. That's how I looked at them going in. But right when you get into the show, I think you are in this world of GCW right away. If you're a new viewer like I was, or a new-ish viewer, not a new viewer really, but a returning one, a lapsed fan, I guess you could say, they got you right away. And who better to really represent the GCW spirit than Maki Ito. Speaking of Japanese wrestlers, as we started off the first show here, we get right into the action pretty much. It's DDT specialty match. You want to talk about DDT crossover? We have the Universal Champion in our midst here because we had Maki Ito and Nick Gage teaming up against Matt Cardona and Steph DeLander. Everybody knows Cardona was like Zack Ryder a long time ago. Steph also had a run in NXT like not that long ago as like Persia Perota, and they're kind of like a team on the indies. How long has this whole deal been going on with these two? Because I remember when Cardona made his debut, they teased it was Jon Moxley. He hit the Death Rider, and everyone was like, "That's Jon Moxley!" And then he pulled the hood off, and it was him. And it got like a huge reaction. And Cardona, I've always looked at him as more like a promoter, like like a self-promoter than like a pure wrestler. Not that I don't think he's terrible or anything, but I've always really vibed with him more. It's like, I respect this guy for how good he is at the social media game. Not dissimilar. I mean, I like him as a wrestler too, but same thing with Brooks in DDT, where I think of him, man, this guy's so smart when it comes to promoting himself on there more than anything in wrestling. And Ito is just nuts pretty much here. So when you get into this match, I was thinking, wow. And the first thing we saw here, speaking of that vibe I told you about, immediately the first thing that happens is Cardona, he grabs the mic and he says, "Shut the fuck up!" to everybody on there. So I let you know that this isn't like a sanitized product, pretty much. Then they're talking. He was talking about how they're like the deathmatch kings or whatever. And it's very funny. Like, this is a very easy heel act to do. Somebody who's clearly not known, like Nick Gage is one of the deathmatch dudes, and Cardona is not. So for him to claim he's like the king of the deathmatch is an easy heat here. And I thought he played his role really well overall as kind of like the heel character here. I mean, this match had a little bit of everything. There was light tubes. There was the pizza blade, the pizza cutter, whatever was there. There was some thumbtacks in there. And so, man, they had everything in this match. I was like, wow, this is the opening match on the show. What have I signed up for? Was kind of my thought after this. But what did you think here, being a GCW aficionado?
It's such a smart opener. Maki Death Kill, this is a very good representation of like the spirit of GCW in terms of like, hey, we're going to take two completely, like opposing things, right? Like Minoru Suzuki and Orange Cassidy, or Maki Ito and Nick Gage, and we're going to put them together, and like it creates gold every time. Or not, I should not say every time. But it's just, this whole relationship between them has been super fun. Like, just a treat. This is the real MJF Adam Cole storyline that people deserve. I don't know. It's also like, there's a lot of like Maki in GCW still feels so different than Maki in other companies. And I think Toru as well. Like, when some of these wrestlers come into GCW, they just like don these different personas. They're like not different, but sort of just like lean into like heavier parts of their character that I just fucking really like, where it's way more like excess, all that stuff. I mean, this entire match is pretty much centered around the double pizza cutter spot. And like Nick Gage handing off the pizza cutter to Maki, it's so cute. It has the energy of like the Big Daddy and Little Sisters from BioShock, or like in Kick-Ass. What isn't it, Big Daddy and the girl, or Hit Girl or whatever? But
Hit Girl, yeah. Yeah,
it's like that. The entrance with the Ghostbusters car is unreal. Cardona, I totally see what you're saying too, with like I would call him like a mind in pro wrestling. Like him, Brooks, definitely. Like, these are people, like Effie is someone else I would think of as well. For me, yeah, Brooks, I think more about like the wrestling, but Effie and Cardona, I definitely look at them and their careers more outside of the ring than inside. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I think everyone played their parts here so well. Like, this is a match that is completely for the fans and attendance. Like, you're getting two of your number one baby faces in the company. You know, Gage is definitely nearing the end of his career with the announcement of War Games in October of Freedoms versus GCW and it being 2 days. I could see Gage retiring the next day against Kasai. So I'm very grateful that we still get these fun little things as we near the end. But yeah, like, this is I gave this a 3 stars. Super basic, run of the mill. Like, this is your house show main event. And it crushed it in that sense as an opener for a pay-per-view.
Was there any, like, additional purpose to the Ghostbusters entrance? Because they came out driving in the car, like you said, and they pop out with the jumpsuits on with the Ghostbusters logo on it, and I was just like, what is this all about? At first, was there a reason behind it, or was it just like, fuck it, we're gonna be fucking Ghostbusters on the show?
Like, Cardona's a huge geek. I want to say they were like the deathmatch busters or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think that's what they said on the mic. He was like, "We're the deathmatch busters."
Yeah, it's just total like, I can't claim to know if there's a storyline reason, but it just feels like Cardona being Cardona, which is great. And like, it gave it that really, like, it was a sight to see, to have like that sort of special entrance as well.
Yeah, and it made it feel big, and I thought they did a good job. I actually kind of liked some of the Ito and Steph spots. Ito's such like a burst of energy on these shows. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed their work, and they did get the win when she hit the headbutt, obviously, on there. So, as a match, I'm not sure how to grade this. To be honest, it's like, I was trying to watch these in the GCW mindset. I feel like it's its own universe, not necessarily defined by my version of wrestling almost. But for this show, I thought it was a pretty, like, really well done opener for what they brought to the table here. Like you said, totally good for the fans. Everybody played their roles well. And I would like to see more of Ito actually in this. She's somebody I remember used to think. I'll have a lot more to say about the Japanese talent, obviously, on this show. I'm more familiar with a lot of them. But 5 years ago, I thought, man, Ito is so overrated. She sucks. Like, well, she's not a good wrestler at all. But I think she still kept her charm that she's always had, which has always been there over the years. But she's really grown as a performer. I think she's actually, like, really good now. And I thought she really shined here in this kind of match and probably had a lot of fun in this crazy-ass match, pretty much. So what happened next was the complete opposite of a death match. You had Leon Slater versus Alec Price in a singles match here. Alec Price, he is obviously, an indie wrestler from the U.S., and Leon Slater is a UK guy. I know he's known in England. Both these guys very young, young indie guys, pretty much like high flyer type of dudes here. I thought that this match was pretty fun, actually. I thought these guys, for being so young, I don't know if they've worked a lot together, but it felt like they had really good chemistry with each other here. I thought that for a quick, fast-paced, again, kind of bringing that ECW vibe, you would have the crazy match with your New Jack or whatever, and then you'd have this high-flying type of exciting match with people there. So I thought it really captured the vibe that they were going for, and I thought it was a good match. The ending was a little lackluster to me, where they did it a lot with they were like having a strike battle, and then Slater hit his move, but it felt like it was just like, okay, time to go home, and we're going home right away.
Damn. Okay. Word. For some reason, okay, I will say, like, I know this isn't the finish to this match, but I'm picturing like Slater hitting Effie with like the Swanton 450. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Wow. Different match. I like this. Alec Price is IWTV champion now, which is pretty wild. Yeah. And he's someone who's really risen up. Northeast Beast, Prince City OG. Oh my God, I can't even talk. But he's been really good and beyond. So I'm always excited to see him when he's on GCW. And at first I got really nervous because when I got to see him at spring break, within 2 minutes, he had injured himself and was like being carried out. And I totally thought he had injured himself at the beginning of this again. I think they did that one spot to the outside and it looked like, I don't know, but it took a while for him to get back in. I think it was like his back or ribs. I don't know, but it was kind of like that Naito Ibushi feel for me in terms of just like, oh God, please don't hurt him, because for me, I'm like, it's as big as that. It's Atlantic City. It's the showboat. It's homecoming. He's going to push his body. But they really turned it around. And again, I don't know if that's the blending of the real life and the work or whatever, but I thought that they turned that situation into a positive. I think Leon Slater just turned 18 or is still like under 18 or something. I've only seen him a couple times in GCW, but goddamn, yeah, like as a high spot match, they both like, I don't know, it feels something like that you'd see between like Swerve and AR Fox 10 years ago, almost. Like just that style of like those sharp, like I'm pretty sure Price does those same like those kicks, right? Like those almost like
yeah, that was near the finish when they were doing the kick battle. Yeah.
Yep, like those those head sniping kicks. I can't even think of the technical term. But yeah, no, and it's unfortunate. Like I think that there was a story with Price's injury, but that they just didn't quite capitalize on that or emphasize it enough in the finish. But this was honestly maybe my favorite match of the night outside of a couple of the death matches in terms of just like street wrestling. This was probably my favorite.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. When you look at the night one card for sure. But props to these young guys really going all out. Always have a lot of respect. I wrestled before I was 18 too. So obviously I'll always be super biased for that as well. So shout out to those guys. Impressed me a little bit here. I liked what I saw between both guys, especially Slater. Really looked good. The next match was where I realized, okay, we're back to GCW like here, because we had Alec, Dark Sheik, and Effie, known as, according to Cage Match, Thrussie here. So you not only have Bussy, you have Thrussie now, which is a new term not in the medical dictionary or even the slang medical dictionary, I would say. They took on the Lucha team of Crazy King and Los Macizos, Ciclope and Miedo Extremo. I knew all about the Lucha guys. I've seen them a bunch of times, especially Miedo Extremo is like one of my favorite Lucha Extrema type of wrestlers. This was not anything to go to the stuff he's done. This was like a comedy match, more or less. So, kind of bringing your DDT theme here, I'm guessing these would kind of be your XB's pheromones in GCW here, pretty much.
Yes, and this is like, I'm cracking up because Thrussie has its own page on Cage Match. Like, when you go on indies and some of them just don't have the hyperlinks. Like, I'm dying that Thrussie has a fucking hyperlink. Why doesn't Dr. Redacted, though? Just for Dr. Redacted. So they are Bussy and then they are Thrussie. And then as we see on night 2, with the addition of a fourth person, they become Thrunt. So there is a mathematics to their faction, but yeah, they're definitely the pheromones. And I don't know, I hated this, honestly. But
I was hoping you would sell me on this, but not agree with me.
No. Hey, I calls it how I sees it, okay? I gave Leon Slater and Alec Price a 3.5, and it's because I'm like I swear, like with my ratings, I try not to put like that much thought into it. It's way more fun, right? And this was just bad, though. I completely understand like a lucha comedy match. I understand the pheromones type match, but like they didn't really do either. And they didn't like, especially to see Crazy King back with Nieto and Ciclope was so badass, because I have not gotten to see that in a long time in GCW. Like, I think it's been a while since they teamed up or whatever. Could be totally wrong. So I was really hoping for a hardcore style match because, Sheik, Effie, Ali, they're all great hardcore wrestlers as well. And I was expecting almost a comedy match that sort of breaks out into something more. But, so Ciclope has like his own Naito shirt where he comes out and he wrestles in fucking Beats headphones the entire time. Yes. And a shirt. And he wears sunglasses. So he was wearing all three in this match. If he takes off the sunglasses, he's actually going to wrestle. And then if he takes off the headphones, he might be falling off a balcony. And if he takes off the shirt, it's like, this is 300 light tubes, right? I swear to God, I think he was wearing a fucking hoodie in this one too. It was like, I can't tell you one thing that happened in this match. It was just so bad. It was pretty much like when you think of like a bad independent wrestling match, it's like a bunch of characters who in certain other ways could function, but here nothing gels and it just all kind of like slops together into one big mess. So, yeah.
It was an experience. I guess some would say. They did do a little bit of like I said, the pheromones type of spots in the match where it wasn't as direct as that, obviously. Like the pheromones are in a whole different a realm, I think, than everyone else. But they did some stuff. They kind of like threw Ali into Sheik, I think it was, like with the Bronco Buster. And then she kissed Ciclope at one point to escape like out of some move that was going on. It was just a crazy match going on there. But the match did end. Sheik hit the top rope leg drop for the win. So Thrusty got the win here. The Los Macizos doing the job. Maybe that's why King was like, I'm going to make sure everyone knows, like, I'm not watching, I'm not listening, I've got 5 layers of clothes on. I'm not even going to try here. And you got to respect that as a worker at the very least. I just thought it was weird pacing after, like, the first 2 matches I thought were good representations of what you would want from this GCW indie show. And then you get this and it kind of like ground things to a halt almost. And the next match was Alec Zane and Tony Deppen in a singles match here. They mentioned that Tony was like injured. I didn't know if that was a story or what they were telling, but he's been out for a while. He came back from injury, pretty much here. This was interesting because obviously I'm familiar with both of these guys. If you're not aware of Alec Zane's Japanese run, he is super over in Japan, and this made me love him. The reason he's over is his love of Taco Bell. I've suddenly appealed to the fans in Japan. He's one of the few people Taco Bell Japan actually follows on Twitter /X. And all of his moves. Listen, I'm drinking a Baja Blast as we speak, which is the name of his move. So I will give big shouts out to that here. Although he lost in this match, ultimately, they kind of did a flash win with Deppen here. I guess they were wanting Deppen to win, but not a definitive one, more or less. But it was definitely a lot better than the last match. I'll say for sure these two are. But what did you think here?
Okay, sort of like the last match before it, maybe like a big symptom of them like not getting to that next level for me is it's a cool match on paper, but once they were in the ring, it didn't feel like there was any real purpose or like intention or like clear idea as to what the match was there to do. Like Tony Deppen's return match against Alec Zane, like on a GCW show, this is like a main event pretty much, a couple of years ago, and now it's almost sort of lost. I haven't seen Zane wrestle much this year. Like I feel he's been injured as well or taking some time off. I know he did like a couple dates in Japan, but he wasn't in this year's Super Juniors, was he?
No, he was.
Yeah. And So it was like really, really exciting to have like two of your biggest names in GCW back. And I was just like, damn, like, I don't know. It just never hit that next level. There was some great little work between them here and there. But like you said, flash pin. And afterwards, like Zayn just sort of gone and Deppen fights Braden Tool the next night. And it's one of those matches where it feels like it should have been something special. And like there was like, I can't tell you, I liked Deppen's promo when he first came back. When he grabbed the mic, it was just a main reason for that is I've never seen or heard Tony Deppen say something nice before. So that was cute. And then he like celebrated with his daughter after that too. Yeah. And again, but it was like after like the sort of like chicken shit flash win or whatever. And it's just, okay. Not to jump ahead, right, to the all-in main event, but sometimes when they have these ideas, but there's just no sense between them. Like, oh, we're going to give him the babyface promo before, he's going to do the babyface celebration with his daughter after, and he's going to win with, like, the heel. And I'm just like...
the heroic cheater with the daughter.
And it's like the 5 minutes thing when there's nothing threatened by time stoppage anyway. But, like, I like these guys. I'm happy Tony Deppen's back, but... You know, sort of through all of night one, it just felt like there was no stakes to a lot of these things for the most part. And I mean, that's not to say most indie shows do, but GCW has definitely cemented their own, you know, big four, I would say, with your Fight Club weekend in October, which is typically like your, War Games. They have Homecoming, they have Collective, and then, so this is like their Mania style show. But yeah, it was just, it felt empty in the end.
I kind of feel that way about a lot of Deppen's matches in general. I mean, I've seen these guys. These are two I've definitely seen a bunch before. Not that I think Zayn is like a top tier wrestler, but I think he's got a charm to him. Deppen feels like, hey, I've watched a lot of Japanese wrestling, and I'm going to wrestle like that. Like I don't really get any sense of him kind of in a lot of his matches. Not that he's bad. I just feel like he's like, he's doing stuff that he saw other people do more than he's doing what he does almost. Like that's how I always feel about him when I watch him wrestle. And that's kind of how I felt about him here. But again, I will definitely take this over what we saw before with the thrusting match. For sure. I would say that. And they were kind of, to me, this was like a basic, maybe warm-up type of match for Deppen coming back to give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit. Where, like I said, he did his, quote-unquote strong style offense with the kicks and everything like that. Zayn did do some good stuff. I like some flying stuff, including one of my old moves, the Harlem Hangover at one point. Here, the flipping leg drop. That was pretty cool.
Shout out.
Anybody who does my moves in any situation will automatically get +1 from me. So any wrestlers listen to this, I'll send you a list of my moves to do, and I will shout it out when you do it. No one's stupid enough to do the Mexican stretch buster except for Jogo Kiona as well, which made me love her so much. Which is the Rio version too of the Kiniku buster, not the Samoa Joe version where you land on the back. You got to land ass first, on your own ass to do it the right way. What a great move! Nobody did that on this show, but I would have loved if they did. So then again, the pacing of the show is just all over the place. Once again, where we went from this normal, Japanese influenced junior heavyweight style match to a dog collar match, a tag team dog collar match at that. You're already echoing my feelings right there when you see this. Joey Janela and Sawyer Wreck versus Charles Mason and Pero. Okay, so I have not seen anything of Charles Mason before. The other three I have seen.
Fuck.
And I've not been impressed.
It's one of those things that enrages me when people wrestle. It's like You are not Katsunari Murakami, dude. He's the only person in the world that should be allowed to wrestle in a suit.
I was just so confused. So wait, he always does this? Like this wasn't just a...
He always wrestles in this dumb ass create an office character. Dude, he's like incel MJF. He's like Patrick Wasteman.
Patrick Wasteman from American Psycho.
Yeah, it was my bad pun on Bateman.
Yeah, I know. American Psycho joke we're going with right now.
Yes, okay. So earlier this year, he was in what felt like a year-long feud with Effie and Alec, primarily Alec. They did a 30-fucking-minute Hell in a Cell match, him and Alec.
Oh no.
Dude, it's so bad. It really feels like oh my God. If a scientist was able to clone MJF by dropping his DNA onto 4chan or something. He's just the worst. It's so bottom of the barrel. I'm this little evil guy. And I fucking do not like Charles Mason. There's nothing.
I'll say this: when I first saw him, he kind of intrigued me a little bit because of that. This is different. A businessman in the world of GCW. It's okay, this is the complete opposite of what you would expect. Obviously, then the wrestling happened, and yeah.
Okay, he's if Loki tried to play MJF. That's what it is.
That is not a good idea in any way.
You have to for a character like this, I don't know. It's just one of those ones where you're trying to insert, because if you took him out of the in-ring attire, it becomes very different, right? Yeah. But it's this insertion of this non-wrestling entity into wrestling, but then he's doing wrestling moves. And I feel there was one match where it's you can tell he's wearing knee pads or something. And it's just all this weird conflicting shit. And okay, I get it. I totally support the vision of you want to try to create a boundary pushing character. You want to do something different. You want to present yourself different. But when all of it feels so antithetical to the art and the craft in a way that doesn't breed new, it's not he's creating punk music from rock, right? It's just it's just grating. It just doesn't line up for me. He's lost every big feud. So going into this match, I don't watch every GCW show anymore, but they have the promo videos, right? And there's such little story here as well. And one of the biggest symptoms of these large GCW shows are stupidly long Joey Janela matches. And Joey Janela is another person I would say we were discussing Effie and Cardona. I think of him way more as a mind in wrestling. Yeah. And he's had some really great matches, but he's not someone I always look at for work rate, right? Way more of a mind. And outside of the finish of this, I just was not a fan. Again, it was way too long. A double dog collar match in the middle of a show is just a lot to ask. And then it all gets centered around the the lift, the stair lift thing.
This lift thing. That was the sentence that they were about to lift him up, and they were okay, we got to throw in the towel or whatever. We got to give up because I think it was Pero tried to put Janela on it, but they fought against it. And then basically they were gonna lift Pero and Mason up, but then they were that we can't do this. This is gonna kill us. So we have to not do that. We have to give up. But there was a lot of stuff, especially with the chairs and stuff like that in the match. That was really more than anything, one of the main weapons. There was a door in there as well that they did. They were doing stuff. Everybody was bleeding. I mean, almost right away, it was everyone had the crimson mask, pretty much. I thought the part that was so weird was when they started off early on. They actually tried to do technical wrestling, change to start. I was what I was like, what the hell is this?
What a fucking scene. Imagine you're on the street and a guy like Charles Mason comes up to you and then he tries to fucking put you in an Ujigatami or something. Like fucking just tries to like put you on the mat in full guard. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like,
so it's like this character, because like I said, when I first saw him, I was kind of intrigued by him. Like, oh, this is something really different, like for GCW, something I wasn't expecting. So is his character like an MJF, like, you know, try to offend everybody, like type of character, like on the promos, or is he just like, I'm in a suit, like that's all I need?
So it's like his promos are always like MJF, like boundary pushing, but not in the sense of I feel like trying to upset the audience, but just like trying for the sense of like being edgy, because he's not so much like, you know, calling people out in the crowd, or like he's trying to be very evil and like blah blah blah. So it's less of like, oh you fat people in Atlantic City. He's gonna be like, I killed someone last night in Atlantic City. You're like, what? But yeah, like, and he always, it's one of those characters that tries to like present the threat, right? Of like, he's going to actually kill you, right? Like he'll choke people out with plastic bags. He's, you know, like the spot where it's like, you know, they stab the turnbuckle with like the knife, like Wheeler did with the screwdriver. It's like, what are your intentions in this athletic ring, sir? Like, and,
so that's where that Patrick Bateman stuff comes from.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe he would really succeed in Impact now that I'm saying this. And that's not even supposed to be mean, but like just go do something like none of the reality supports it. It's just like I said, it's just conflicts. He feels like one of those characters from a different movie and none of it lines up. And like he's always trying to do so much, I don't know, acting and all this stuff. And again, like it really sticks out on a GCW show because he tries to play it so serious, but like he's wrestling in a suit.
Well, so that's kind of like what I said with Devin. This sounds like, oh, I saw this in a movie, so I'm going to do it in my wrestling character. And it's like, like, I don't know. I don't know. At the end of the day, I just thought the wrestling quality of this match was very low in general. At the end of the day, regardless of whatever you want to say, I'm not going to point the finger at any one of them. I think they're all a little to blame in their own ways. But that is interesting that there's a character like this on this show. I can't say I'm interested, but it is at least something, I would say. But we got to the scramble match next, because that's always been like something I've associated with GCW, like 5, 6, 7 guys in a match and they're gonna just do crazy stuff. So we got a lot of guys here, some foreigners and also some GCW regulars. You got Jimmy Lloyd, Shane Mercer, Cole Radrick, Arez, Commander, Gringo Loco, Ninja Mac, and Dante Leon here. So Dante Leon and Ninja Mac both wrestle in Noah as well in Japan. So they have
so crazy
Japan runs. Ninja Mac's gotten really over with the fans actually there. Dante Leon hasn't, unfortunately for him. But Commander, Arez, obviously Lucha mainstays, Gringo Loco, a longtime veteran. And then you've got Jimmy Lloyd and Shane Mercer and Cole Radrick, who are GCW guys. So you have a little bit of everybody here. 8 men in one match. What did you think of this? Because this is kind of what I consider a GCW staple here. And,
This was a good scramble match, not a great GCW scramble match, though. I think on night 2, when we talk about the 4 3-way tag match, that to me is a great GCW scramble. They very much like, if any old like PWG heads remember like those, Bola like 10-man tags we used to get, like that's what it is. It's just total insanity. It's like I feel like half the matches sometimes is them just trying to line up these absolutely fucking ridiculous like moves where it's like, like we'll see in night 2 with like the massive destroyer sequence. Like so much of it is just like move set up and bah! And it really just feels like kids walking up to a wall and just throwing like massive fucking paint balloons at it and just trying to see what they can do. It's fun. Like what I enjoyed about this one is kind of seeing like a little bit of the growth just in characters, right?
Yeah.
Like Commanders with Triple A now, like Gringo Loco is still Gringo Loco. Radrick, I'm like, he's like a deathmatch guy now. And then for me, like Dante Leon and Ninja Max, seeing them do their spots in this and then remembering like them in Loco Wrestling and GCW versus Loco from like a couple years back or whatever, it's just like crazy. And I don't know, it feels like AFI playing Chain Reaction in the sense of like, you know, these guys are on a much bigger stage now, but as the title suggests, they still come home. So you still get all your weird and wild moves. I'm happy Gringo Loco didn't die. And yeah, Jimmy won this, right?
Yeah, and I was shocked by that. He's the one who by far did the leak.
That's a Jimmy Lloyd, dude. That's the best part.
But the crowd loved it. Like when he won, like they went nuts with his victory here. Like you said, the worst person, or not, I don't want to say the worst, but the one who did the least by far. Listen, Shane Mercer was in this match, right? Well, I didn't imagine that because on Cage Match it says he wasn't, but I distinctly remember him doing a moonsault to the outside.
Yes. Okay, was this the match? Again, see, because it's hard because I'm like, okay, there's 2 scramble matches, but in one of them, he tried to do the fucking the assault press or whatever, the one where it's the backwards moonsault.
Yeah.
And he didn't get it. And then he was like, no, we're going up higher, brother. And he just walked up the turnbuckle. And I was like, oh my God, he's getting his shit in.
Did I just dream him being in this match? Because I feel like he was, but maybe it was the second night. Because Cage Match says he wasn't, but I feel like he was. Did I dream this?
No, I'm super positive he was in.
Yeah. Like either me or Cage Match is wrong, and you know, you normally Cage Match is pretty accurate, but I don't know. I feel like he was in here, so you know, I remember him, and I remember him being impressed by him. I was like, man, this guy's got something. Everybody did good here in this match, actually. Like, to be honest with you, I thought pretty well. Outside, like I said, Lloyd did the worst, but his win drove the crowd nuts pretty much. Worked out pretty well. I think this is the best way to use somebody like a Dante Leon is like put him in this crazy match, let him do his spots, and let him not do something you have to really – nothing too, you know, complicated, pretty much. Just do your spots. Like, don't try and wrestle any kind of psychology because we saw that in Japan. Him and Hayata had a really terrible junior title.
Oh, my God. Wait. This is our first disagreement, so I just want to, like, say hell yeah. I love that match. That was my favorite Hayata match I've seen.
Hayata and Dante Leon? Are you serious? Because listen, I love the Ninja Mac and Hayata match. I thought that was one of Hayata's best.
I like that one too. Hayata and Dante Leon, they brought in like the tables and everything, right? So I remember people on Cage Match hated it, and I was like, I love this. So I think I gave it like a 3.75. So I'm happy to know we disagree in some places.
No, and we will. I'm not hating on you for it at all. I like disagreements because I would like being wrong. I wish somebody would tell me, no, Mercer wasn't in that match. Cage Match got it right. Because, you know, here's my philosophy. When you're wrong, it gives you an opportunity to learn and grow at the end of the day. So, you know, you can't be right all the time. But, yeah, I just remember that. Poor Hisame, who's like, and I love her very much, but she is always towing the line for Noah, pretty much. No matter what happens, we'll always be on the company's side. But even that one was like, this match was not up to the standard of Junior. I was like, man, like, this match really let everybody down. But not you. You are the Dante Leon respector on this show right now. Is that true? Are you a Dante Leon fan?
Yeah, I'm a heat seeker at heart. What can I say? That's his finisher, right? The heat seeker?
Yeah.
Or no, yeah.
Yeah, the thing he does, which obviously everybody kind of knows now. Hey, listen. Say what you want about him, but when you get co-opted by an NXT wrestler, that is when you know you've made it at the end of the day. The End Seeker. I've looked up his name.
That's what it is. Yeah, I'm an end seeker till the end. So
When do we see getting to the end?
Sorry, I don't know why I leaned into the microphone for that one.
To be more dramatic, and I like that. That's a very cinematic move you just made there to make yourself more dramatic. I appreciate that.
Have you ever seen Ninja Mac Under the Mask, by the way?
No.
Dude, okay, so when he first came into GCW, because they were doing the Texas shows,
yeah,
and goddamn, this is when Gage was still champion before he dropped it to Cardona, like after that 730 days, or when he dropped it to Ricky Shane Page.
Yeah.
So he fought Alec in Texas, and Ninja Mac was on it, I think. It's like 2019 or 20. And dude, he looks like John Wayne Murdoch. And I always forget that, but he's just like a little redhead Southern boy. And it's always so fun. He's got like a Billy Goat beard. And I always forget that. So, and then I'm like, damn, dude, he is like that. He's like Midwest Chuck Norris, little badass.
I like Ninja Mac a lot.
Me too. He's one of those guys where the excess works so well. Like, because anytime he stops flipping, I'm like, that's it. And then he does 3 more. And I'm like, oh, he's got me again, the devil. He's just so cool.
Give it up to Ninja Mac. You never know when he's going to stop flipping. It's unpredictable. But, yeah, this is another match that, like, in the context of GCW, this scramble match pretty much worked, and everybody looked good in it pretty much. They gained something from it. The next match, this was actually my favorite match of the whole show, the one coming up, which was, in fact, for the ultra-violent title. Rina Yamashita defending against Takeshi Sasaki. Freedoms has come to America. I mean, they've been here for a long time, and we're about to see the title, the actual title itself for the next match. But I thought this was like a really strong death match. In general, even with it being intergender, they just worked so well with each other. They started off with there was barbed wire doors here, doors with barbed wire on them, which I just love the idea of this. It's like, we're not just going to have a door. We're going to wrap the whole door in barbed wire. There's no logical purpose for this in any situation other than a death match here, pretty much. They came in with the light tubes and things like that. Yamashita smashed him with one, carved his head into it. This was crazy, this match here. Obviously, it's something, if you're a fan of any, death match type of scene in Japan, you've seen a lot of this stuff before. But I will give you a warning if you haven't, going in there too. They did a wild spot where he threw glass at him. And then he put the light tubes across her chest and kicked them into her boobs, pretty much here. It was crazy. I almost jumped out of my seat at that. They came in there. Rina ended up hitting this the cradle pile driver. Was wild. They did a 1 count kick out on that. And did you notice the crowd booed when that happened? Because I thought they were behind Yamashita, but when he kicked out, I didn't know if they were like, this is cheesy, or or did they just want him to win? I don't know what it was. But in the end, they go through the barbed wire door with the Splash Mountain, and Yamashita won. A bloody match for this ultra-violent title. What did you think?
I liked the final stretch a lot. When she hit that Splash Mountain, the pop from it was great. The match itself was my least favorite, probably, out of the 3 death matches on this show. For Rina, like, her success in GCW has been so different than in Freedoms, in the sense of, like, she wins every goddamn match in GCW, right? Okay. So when all of the guys from Freedoms came out, like when she won Tournament of Survival, right? And then Kasai and Sugiura came out and celebrated, and then they, like, they hit her with the moves. They, like, fucked her up. And so coming War Game weekend in October, she's kind of like aligned. She's Team GCW with Gage, Murdoch, and I think Mazizos versus Team Freedom. So since Tournament of Survival, it feels like the story has been that the Freedoms guys are very much the ghosts of her past. She's come here, she's gotten all this success because even though she's like, I mean, she's so goddamn popular in Freedoms now and everything, right? But she rarely ever wins the big match. Like, that's the thing. She always gets so close. But here, it's the complete opposite. She, like, finally won it. And, I mean, almost 300-day reign now as Ultraviolet champion, won the Tournament of Survival same year, like, has not been pinned, I think, in a while outside of Cage of Survival, I think, or whatever. But,
yeah.
So I was very much expecting like Sasaki being kind of just like the dickhead teacher, right? And they played that dynamic well in terms of like she has to win this, right? And at times it felt like he didn't really take her seriously as well. But up until that final stretch, I just never hit that second gear for me. And I don't know, from the Yamashita death matches that I've watched, it felt a lot slower than normal. And even for typical like Sasaki matches as well, because I think of like his match with Risa Sera, and that was like one of my favorites that he's had in a very long time. So this one didn't quite click for me, but I mean, I say all of this as I give it a 3.25. So that's still great, but those are pretty much my criticisms. But no, I mean, still, these are two of the best deathmatch wrestlers in the world. Yeah, I don't know. I would love to hear more about what you, but yeah.
Here's my thing on death matches in general. And I think a reason why I may have liked this, I think if they had swapped if this had been the main event, I would have liked whatever came first the best. Because you look at these matches. This match, light tubes. The next match, light tubes. John Wayne Murdoch and Tori Sugiura. Main event death match, light tubes. Once again, it's the same stuff over and over. And my favorite kind of death matches are the old, like the death matches of old. I've said this before. If you go back and look at Big Japan from 25 years ago, even 15 years ago, in Ito's kind of prime, like they would do so much different stuff. There would be a cactus death match. You'd have the barbed wire net. There'd be dry ice and scorpions and piranhas and all kinds of crazy stuff. That the point of the match was kind of like, okay, something crazy was going to happen, but they'd build to it. And then it would be, once that crazy thing happened, like somebody fell off the scaffold into the barbed wire net, the match was over after that. Here in these modern death matches, I've always kind of really struggled with a lot of them because ultimately it's like, okay, we're going to use death tubes or light tubes like we've done in every death match for 10 years now, pretty much. It's like it's always the same. So in general, I think that may have been a reason why I like this more than the later ones. Because whenever I see stuff like that, I just think, man, we're doing the light tubes again, like always. And that always really turns me off. And that's going to be a struggle when we continue watching these kind of shows. And why I kind of, even with the Japanese death matches, I kind of struggle with them. Because ultimately it's always just kind of reruns of like the same stuff I've seen a million times. And for this particular match, I do think also too that the intergender factor actually made it more stand out to me because it, like this kind of match, it benefits from shock factor, like that you could have something extremely violent. So when you see something like that, that did stand out more. Again, it didn't really hit me, but maybe subconsciously it did. It is kind of where I'm going with that more or less. But that's kind of my feelings on a lot of these matches because I felt like they were very similar ultimately, and like one after the other. I think it would be better if they just had one big death match, or if it was something where, I think if it was just one big death match, or like with like if every match had a different gimmick to it, I guess would be the best kind. But everyone uses light tubes now, so I know I'm on kind of an island on that thinking.
No, I thank you so much for sharing that. It's like, no, it's so cool to like hear and see your perspective on it. So I agree. Like the one thing that stuck out to me was the barbed wire wrapped steel chair, because I think it got used in all three matches in big spots. And that to me, I was like, okay, because glass never gets old to me. I'm a big deathmatch guy, but I agree also with having that singular focus, and they tend to do that more on their deathmatch tournament shows in terms of like match steps. Like you'll have a Tokyo Towers, you'll have gusset plates. And that stuff's nice too, because again, there's many different ways to hold a brush, right? So it's like you can really have, like we saw yesterday, there's no difference between centering an entire match around one light tube, one coffin, or 100 light tubes, right? Like you can still work it all different ways beautifully. I don't know, I guess, and then that's to say that to me, all three matches definitely had the glass, but it felt like there was, very different stories behind them, at least, that I was able to connect through. And again, maybe this is because I watched so many light tube death matches that it's almost like a dog barking to me, like how some people at a certain point just don't hear it. Yeah. They're like, oh yeah. You have to tune out like noise or whatever, but no, that's fascinating. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know if this will be popular with that kind of thinking will be popular with deathmatch fans out there, but I'm just telling it like it is, or how I see it anyway. And everyone's free to like it if they do. So I'm not hating on anybody.
No, I was just gonna say it's definitely. I think it's for a show like this, because so many shows do have different steps like that, and they do have, at the very least, if you're going to include glass, different primary weapons, right? Like not that barbed wire wrapped chair. Yeah. So on a show like this, that's one of your biggest of like the year, it's like definitely show out for more weapons and don't just. I think they had like a lot more stuff on night two, but this definitely felt bare bones in the sense of like an IWA Mid-South COVID era King of the Death match. So yeah.
I will say that I like the panes of glass they used in the next match, which is for the King of Freedom title. Toru Sugiura defending against John Wayne Murdoch, who he's a guy that has been around like the Southern Indies for a while. And there, it was like very interesting. He's back as like I know him as like Damian Payne, like back in so you see him now, and it's like. Okay, I totally get what you're going for, like a Southern deathmatch guy, pretty much. I was surprised at how short this was, though. When you see the time on Cage Match, only 9 minutes. But they did a lot in this match, I will say. I can see why you like this better, actually, the more I look through my notes here. One thing we have to say, too, get well soon, Hirata. I don't know if anybody saw that, the Sugiura and Hirata match at Freedoms. Which had a very terrible injury to Hirata. That's actually how he won the title, in a very unfortunate circumstance, pretty much there. But yeah, they did everything. Sugiura hit a big Tope Con Hero early on the outside. There was a big thing of glass that was in the corner. He threw Sugiura through. They had a ton of light tubes that was there. He cut him open with some of the glass. There was the barbed wire chair that you mentioned as well, where he went there. But they just threw everything. They had 2 steel chairs, but then Sugiura grabbed him and hit him with the slam through him. And that was another 1 count. That's another thing I didn't like because we just saw that in the prior match, and they did it again. But in the end, 1 more light tube shot, and then the over easy from Sugiura got the win over John Wayne Murdoch. So, like fast paced, all action. But like I said, if this had been on first, I think this would have been my favorite. And I think that's really the only difference I can give you on why I like the other one better.
No, and but like that is, it's so important, right? If you're doing a single match, and that's all you have to consider. But like as a booker, as talents, etc., like those things are like part of like the overall thing to consider is like, okay, we're going to have 3 death matches in a row. So what can we do to make sure that all have the same impact as that initial light to break right in the first match? And there are shows like Tournament of Survival 6, I think, is a show where all 7 matches like build on each other and nothing feels repetitive or tired. So I think your criticisms are completely valid. And like, because it's unfortunate too, because I think the kick out at 1 here was more effective than the one in the first match. It was dulled. Yeah, like it felt more, because this is like such a burst match, right? Like it started off hot, and then there was that like brief little lull where I think Murdoch walked Sugiura around the entire ring for the audience, which like you know, it's hard to complain about shit like that for death matches because it's so much for the audience that's there that, yeah, you're going to walk them around the full ring and like poke them in the head in each corner because people love it, right? But outside of that, like, and this isn't like a direct comparison, but this had the energy of like Kenta versus Ricky Marvin of like, yo, we got 6 minutes and we are going to do everything to each other. Yeah, it was 9 minutes. And then if you probably take out maybe a minute or two for that heat section, like that's like 5 panes of glass. It's almost a pane of glass per minute. And I personally, Murdoch is my favorite North American deathmatch wrestler. Okay. Like, I really hope he gets to go to Freedoms or Big Japan. Like, he was, oh my God, 2020, I want to say. He was, like, my most outstanding wrestler of the year. Like, he really put death match wrestling on his back. He wrestled 138 death matches that year, something like 30 defenses as the ICW American Deathmatch Champion. And he is one of those people, too, where, like, if it's Horror Slam in front of 5 people, or it's, you know, an ICW weekend in Atlantic City main event, like WrestleMania weekend or whatever, he's going to give the same amount, same amount of energy, same amount of go. Like, he loves wrestling and it comes through. And it's also, I will say, sometimes it can be very hard to find people that resonate with you, morally speaking, within the deathmatch community.
Okay.
We have things like XPW, but I digress.
We will not cover XPW on this show.
No.
If you try to get me on that, I have to draw the line at some point.
No, the line is there. We do not have to cross it. But yeah, this was just a total sprint. They showed the fuck up. America Toru is so fun because he just like walks around and he's like, oh, and just like screams at everyone. And he's just like it all gets heightened to 11, right? Like in Japan, Maki Ita's whole thing is like, it's insinuated that she's like, you know, very evil and very tough and all that. And then she comes to America and now she's slicing people with pizza cutters wearing a bandana with like convicted bank robber Nick Gage, right? And it's like literally like what, like, oh, come on, it's not like that. And then they come here and it's like that. I think like, you know, Reina, Toru, and Maki really have taken to just American wrestling here, you know? Like when you know, like when you see Eddie where people go to the G1 and all of a sudden they're doing the choo and all like that effect, like the noise effects, right? When they're wrestling now, they're not talking and shit, but they're doing like those more onomatopoeia, like animated things. And it's just the way that people adapt. It's so fun to see them like take into it rather than just try to like be the same person. So that was definitely fun as always to see Toru here.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of his. Hey, Kobashi's favorite deathmatch worker. He was on Fortune Dream at one point. They brought him in just for a normal match, not a death match. But
that's so funny.
He's great. John Wayne Murdoch, Murfreesboro's own Tennessee wrestler right now. Memphis born and raised right here with me. As we know, all the best wrestlers in the world come from Tennessee. That is a true fact. And he is one of those with the legacy. Murfreesboro's a little ways away from me, though. Maybe like 90 minutes, 2 hours, something like that, maybe, away from me. So a little bit away, but still Tennessee nonetheless. So I have to like him. Up next was a match featuring nobody from Tennessee. In fact, Nate Webb, a legendary indie deathmatch wrestler back in the CZW days, and Masha Slamovich. And this match was basically like the destruction of Nate Webb. It felt like it was like Masha got everything pretty much, and it looked like she won with a very dominant chokeout win here. So interesting here is how I wrote about this.
Brett has like the Tony Khan booking abilities for Masha Slamovich. It's obscene how fucking like on Spring Break, I'm pretty sure she had this same match where she wasn't really booked for the show and then she came out and had an impromptu match. I love Masha Slamovich. She is great.
Oh yeah, she looked great. Yeah.
And like, I love Nate Webb. This was so funny. They're like, "Hey Nate, you're gonna go out, you're gonna get your ass beat, but we'll let you play Teenage Dirtbag twice in a row for your intro." He's like, "Done." But like, dude, it was just one of those things where she had to cut the promo after, and like, okay, have this at the beginning of the show. Don't put this 3.5 fucking hours, dude. GCW really, they have this illness to booking that forces them to book impromptu matches before a main event on a near 4-hour show. And it happens so frequently because they do Santana Jackson the next night. And I don't know, I mean, if it's to like make a break or whatever, but it's just unnecessary. Like, it felt like the crowd was excited to see them. And then once it began, it was just dead. Masha looked great. Always fun to see Spider. And then Masha had to cut the promo after to like a completely dead crowd, which was just pretty unfortunate. And
this crowd was so weird in general to me because there was times where, I mean, look at the main event. I mean, when that match started, it was an electric atmosphere. The opener. And then there were spots, like I mentioned in the show, like that one count in the Yamashita match, where it's like they started booing randomly, where I was like, what? And then after this, like you said, this was like a somewhat exciting match, and then the crowd was just like, oh, it's over. We don't care anymore. What was that?
It's indie wrestling fans. I don't know. Like, anytime a group of fans chant "you fucked up" at a wrestler, I just try to like completely disengage from them at that point. It's like it's the type of audiences that want to get themselves over. And then they like run out of steam. I'm like, cool, you spent your energy trying to come up with something like funny. Enjoy the show. But yeah, no, it was definitely weird. I don't know how late. I think like, okay, by the time the main event went on, it was like 3.5 hours in the show. So that's almost midnight for them too. I will say that's like the thing. Yeah. And as someone who has been at a GCW show at 2 a.m, and they're fucking like, the next match is Mao and Mike Bailey versus, I think it was like Los Macizos at 2 a.m. And then they brought out a musical performance, and I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, dude. So this is, I don't know, it's on them. It's poor booking. It's like putting your top babyface in a spot that no one would do well in, because like, yeah,
I agree, but we did have one last match. The main event was the death match between Violento Jack and Matt Tremont here. I didn't understand this at all at first, because this is a non-title match. Was there a story reason why? Because I mean, the crowd loved this. They were totally on board by the end. Is there some story I was missing here? Because I just thought, why is this the main event? The other two had titles on the line.
I'm like trying to check real quick, because I don't think they've ever faced before. I think that's pretty much it.
Rematch scenario. Yeah. Well, Tremont's like one of the definitive deathmatch guys, and Violento Jack is awesome. Everybody knows that. So. Yeah,
and like, it kind of hit me night two, but Violento Jack main evented both shows. Like, this was the Violento Jack weekend.
He deserved it. He's great.
And they've definitely made him the mouthpiece of freedoms for the feud. But yeah, no, this, I think on paper was pretty much like your Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega dream match. What did you think?
Now, see, here the thing is, there was a lot to like about this match. These guys put in a ton of effort right away. They started off with the light tubes, or the crowd was really giving them a great reaction just before they even did anything. They made it feel like it was a big match, so I didn't know if it was an angle, a dream match, or what. But the crowd reacted very positive towards it. They started off right away. I mean, there was a spot where Jack hit him with that headbutt through the light tube there, which I thought was stupid, but he
ripped his Band-Aid off.
Ah! Yeah, in a glorious way though. At the end, they did all kinds of stuff. There was all kinds of stuff in the corner with the pane of glass there. At one point, Tremont grabbed a fork and spiked himself with it, which is like a tried and true deathmatch spot to smash a light tube over your own heads and stuff. But this time he did it with a fork. And then I thought it was interesting where they started doing a strike battle, and then Jack hit a low blow. And the crowd, I was like, okay, so he is a heel here, like character here. But then you look at the ending, and it was totally against that, but whatever. They came in with a big thing, another one-count kick out, like the third out of 3 death matches where we did that with Tremont here. I was like, man, they're doing it again, like the same stuff. But then Jack did this wild move. He had the light tubes that like did a splash on the top with the light tubes. And in the end, though, they got in there, and Jack ended up grabbing him in the chokehold and choked him out. And no tap out here. He was too tough to give up, but the ref stopped the match. And I just thought, in a death match, you're doing this? So I wasn't a fan of the finish personally. But I feel like if I were a GCW fan and I was more aware of the stories and stuff, this may have resonated huge with me. But just watching it on its own, I was like, oh, man, like for real? Like we're doing that in a death match?
So yeah, no, I was going to say Tremont has such a unique way of selling. Like he really has his own style that I just love, which is very visceral. I like don't know how to describe it other than just how I'm literally moving at my desk right now, which
you're just waving your hands around, trying to. Hey, but I can see it. We can see it in our hearts, though. Nello. That's what you don't.
Thank you. God, I wish I could describe. He's very like comic booky in the sense of like if you poke him, he's gonna be like pow almost, and it's so real though still and just slightly cartoony. I really, really like this. This might have been my favorite match of the weekend. It totally delivered for me. Just like the Russian leg sweep between the to the outside off the apron was disgusting. Like
yeah, that was sick. Yeah.
The fact that Tremont did a 700 light tube death match versus the original Prince of the Death Match, Neil Diamond Cutter, for like some H2O anniversary show last month. And he's in the hospital for a while. So I was just really happy to see Tremont here doing a death match. And but like it's good to see that he's back. And I mean, he's able to do something at this level again. And, you know, if you look at the class that Tremont comes from, it's pretty much like, you know, the same class as Gage and Havoc. Yeah. And there's not a lot of those people around anymore. So I'm very, very grateful for these Tremont matches. And he really is able to pull up this big death match feel still. Yeah. I think his way that he interacts with the crowd it's like very Kento almost. This is ha, ha. And like he always knows how to get the chant in, the perfect time to get it in. He does not take extra steps most of the time. Like he's not going to wasted motion you or anything like that. Yes, Jack is totally like the dickhead ultimate final boss here. It felt like there's something always strange about a death match ending in a submission because it's one of those things where there almost feels like it's implicated that it's going to end with some like just thing that would explode your body, right? Yeah. And like it made me think back to Jack because Jack submitted Sugiura too, if I'm not mistaken, to like end his long ass like 2-year reign or whatever. And back then I was like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Was it a submission or did they stop the match? Because I thought they said he passed out.
Oh, Tremont? I think he passed out. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't like it. If it was a tap out, I would have liked it a lot better. But because he passed out, I was like, come on, you're stopping the match? We had a guy about to get lifted from the dog collar, and they had to give up on that. The referee didn't stop it then, so well, why now? I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe that was a cheese. That's why I reacted that way. Maybe I'm just being too anal about it, and I apologize.
No. I misunderstood. So I thought you were saying you just didn't like submission finishers in death matches in general.
No, I'm totally fine with submission. It's just the ref stopping the match. I was like, why did they do that?
Wasn't Jack like stabbing Tremont in the arm though with the arm bar, and then the ref stopped it once he started stabbing him?
Yeah.
The only 2 people I've seen do that are Takeda and Jack, and it's fucking ridiculous each time. Like that's the stuff where I say like there's many ways to hold a brush. incorporating it in like little actions like that where you're like, it's brilliant. Like that's the time you should use glass if ever. But like, dude, Tremont sold his ass off. And like the fact that Tremont can still walk and like perform at this level again, like I'm always amazed as to what Tremont is still able to do in the ring. And like how he really is one of those guys, I mean, who has changed his style a lot. And he's like Abby, right? Where Abby can make those matches where you're just hitting each other with tubes for 10 minutes. Amazing. Even though you're not doing much wrestling and it's just tube shots, like Abby can somehow make that into a brilliant and fun match still. Yeah. And I think Tremont still has that power. But yeah, this was just a really cool dream match that delivered for me. So I was stoked on it.
No, this totally worked for the fans. Like I said, I think I would have – that's why I said if I were a follower of all of this, I think I would have liked the finish a lot more. But I was thinking like, oh, man, we just had them lifted with the dog collar match, and they didn't stop it, and then you're going to stop it here. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a lame finish. But like I said, I think there's more – like I said, if you're a true fan like you and the fans in the crowd were, I think you get a lot more from the finish than I did.
It honestly, it made me think that he was going to beat Rena as well. Him like basically making Tremont pass out like that. And
yeah, it would have made perfect sense. But let's get into night 2 here. I know we're both running a little low on time.
Sorry. Yeah.
Here, well, we can talk about it when we get to the main event though. We'll get through everything. Night 2 was the night after. Same venue in Jersey, Atlantic City. I've known a lot of people from Jersey in my time, and I've always liked all of them. So I got to give Jersey's underrated, man. You look at the sports teams, the Giants, Jets, and all of that. They play in Jersey, but they say they're New York. Why can't we give Jersey their love here, in my opinion? So I'm very unhappy with the disrespect there. The first match of the show was, we kind of mentioned it earlier, Tony Deppen. And literally the first thing we see out of this is Deppen saying, who the fuck is this guy? And I think we were all asking it from the sound of it. I thought the match was all right, though. Like, I didn't think it was bad in the end. The finish was big. Deppen hit this knee shot on the back of his head. It was pretty good, I thought, in the end. But this tune, I mean, he did some stuff. He had that shooting star press at one point. They tried to do a little bit here. He had that swanton bomb going in there, and it was all right. He just seems like a punk rock indie wrestler.
We're so spoiled. When he did that swanton, I was like, oh, what's he gonna do, a 630? Because Leon Slater, and then he just did a regular swanton, and I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, a swanton is still remarkable, dude. But as weird as this may sound, I did like this more than Deppen and Zayn from night 1. Because it felt like Deppen was able to be Deppen, right? It wasn't this like he was just back to being a total dickhead.
Yeah.
And this felt like a more traditional Deppen match because, GCW from like, God, okay, I started watching in like 2018, They Said It Couldn't Be Done Jun Kasai show. I pretty much watched like every single show since for the most part. So I was like trying to think. But, Tony Deppen would essentially open every show back in the day against whichever that week's Braden tune was. Yeah. And these were always going to be your guys who pretty much Joey Janela or Brett found on Twitter. And it was fun because that's how you got Alex Zane, right? That's how you got a lot of these like random guys who are now staples of the scene. And, dickhead gatekeeping Deppen, I think, is Tony's best position because, like you said, and I think you put it very eloquently to say that Tony Deppen can hit all these moves, but there's not much identity behind them.
Yeah.
And, I think where he's able to kind of marry that lack of identity is just with like how rude he can be, you know, like when he goes to hit you and chop you, and then instead he twists your nipples, and then he goes to hit you in the face, and then instead he blows snot on you. Like those are the little things that he adds to it. And I think that is what can, you know, emphasize the flying knee strike at the end, right? To feel more like a fuck you punctuation than just Kenta knee strike. So yeah, this was nice in the sense that it was just a good old Deppen gatekeeping match, and I've literally never heard of Braden Toon, so congratulations to him.
And he gave Deppen, to his credit, he gave him a lot in this match to kind of be somebody. And I agree with you. I like this better than the other match where I thought it was like, oh, we're doing a junior heavyweight style match here. Here it's like this had a lot more like clear-cut dynamic with Toon being this guy nobody knows, pretty much like this underdog, like easy underdog character for Tony Deppen to be the bully towards. So yeah, I like this too. I thought it was a good start to the show here. And like you, I'd never seen him before, but I thought he did pretty much fine for his role, and Deppen did a good job getting him there too. So good stuff from Deppen and Toon. I know I criticized him a little bit earlier, but I did like this match though. Next up was an 8-man tag match, 8-person tag match, in fact. You've got, as we mentioned before, Thrunt. We cannot forget Thrunt. Is there, what happens if there's 5? What will they be then?
I don't know, but it's like Powerpuff Girls. It's like the professor mixed Thrussie and Sawyer Rack and created Thrunt.
Yes, exactly. Is Effie Professor
What would be the third or the fifth? I don't know. What could you think of?
Who's the Mojo Jojo of this group?
Oh my God.
The 5th Powerpuff Girl secretly.
Oh, Braden Toon. That's who we could give him that spot. No, I think it'd have to be Maki Ito. Yeah. Like that would be the Mojo. She would be the secret 5th. So then that would be Bussy, Thrussie, Thrunt. Pentunt? I don't know.
Pentunt? Is that
I don't know.
I'm free to steal these ideas, Effie, Lauderdale, all of you.
I'm not good at math. Forgive me.
I don't even know what that means. So, I don't even know words, let alone math at the moment. But the whole gang was here. Effie, Alec, Dark Sheik, and Sawyer Wreck versus Marcus Mathers, Starboy Charlie, Leon Slater, and Brogan Finley here. And I was just so... Like when this match started, I was just like, "This is nuts! Why am I watching this?" I think the thing is though, Thrunt, for all of their flaws and criticisms we could have, the crowd loved them here, and I think it's a gimmick in this day and age that's like easy money, pretty much, you know, at the end of the day, like something very relatable. You've got this gay team, you know, pretty much with Effie, LGBTQ plus team, like with all of them here, with Dark Sheik, Ali Catch, Sawyer Wreck. It's like you got everybody here, representation in full effect here, which I think is a great thing, you know, for the fans at the end of the day, you know, so it's like a very easy gimmick to do right now, and that's why they're so beloved. I think it's so well known in the GCW universe, so to speak. The other guys were all like young indie dudes, pretty much. And I mentioned before, I really liked what I saw of Slater. The Starboy Charlie match on that DDT show was awesome.
Against Higuchi?
Yeah, against Higuchi. Yeah, that was like.
Did you hear me screaming Higuchi's name during that? I was going hoarse. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I found him out front after it. He was just smoking, and I was like, "I loved your match against Okabayashi," and he was like, "Thank you."
It was Higuchi.
Such a weekend highlight. Yeah, that match was great.
And Finley, he is obviously the son of Finley, Fit Finley, and David Finley's brother here, pretty much. So another member of the Finley family, who I always respect. I'm a Finley respecter for sure. But like I said, I mean, this was a nonsense match at the end of the day, but it worked for the audience, so I can't really criticize it too much.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying real quick about Thrunt, like Effie is one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. To have like just queer representation in wrestling still feels so fresh. And then like as a queer person myself that is also sober, like Effie is also sober. So like that's always been someone who talks about it that has been sort of inspirational for myself as well.
Absolutely.
And here I would honestly say that Homecoming Night 2 felt like a complete fix. Like there was nothing on this show that I disliked. Like everything that didn't work on night 1, it felt like it worked here. Like the Brat Pack versus Thrunt was just, it made so much more sense. And then they worked it so differently than they did with Mazizos the night before as well, which made still no sense anyway. But I liked this. I really wish that Billy Starks was in this. But she did get injured, I guess, the night before, which is such a bummer. So I hope she heals up quick.
Would she have been a part of Pintunt or a rival?
No, so she's in Brat Pack. So it's Finley's Brat Pack was originally Finley, Slater, Charlie, Nick Wayne, and Billy Starks, and there's like this photo of them, and I'm like, damn, that's like gonna be a pretty wild photo in 5 years, like. And then Mathers was added. Mathers is, I would say, probably the best student from Matt Tremont. Like when you see Mathers live, he's very dialed in. It's weird because this may say in the same way that like a Jeff Jarrett or Emi Sakura is in. Like he's just very like, I don't know how to say other than just tuned in. He's always there.
Braided.
This was I'm a Looney Tooney dude. But like this like I said, sometimes a match doesn't have to be great if it makes sense. Because when it just becomes fucking great and it's like, dude, this is like, this was pure fun for me. Like I liked how the Brat Pack obviously were just the young guys. They hit like those 4 fucking like insane, I think it was everyone hitting their moves and then Slater hitting his Swanton 450 after. And then meanwhile, Thrunt has maybe done like 4 moves so far in the match. And it was just super funny. Like the contrast between like the guys who are going to do 45 moves and take 20 neck bumps in a match versus the people who have very much become like minds around wrestling for the most part and have figured out how to like wrestle. I wouldn't, maybe not necessarily smarter, but differently to like not take so much on their bodies. And it was very much like that. I can't keep up with these fucking kids, man. So yeah, it was, this to me felt like just a fun GCW match, like a classic style GCW one.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing I would expect watching a GCW show. So I think when you see this as a fan, you're right at home. And like you said, the representation on there, that has to be mentioned when you look at these Effie and not just him, but Alley Catch as well, Dark Sheik, transgender representation. You get a little bit of everything with them too, and everybody deserves to have their own representation and heroes when it comes to wrestling, or especially in wrestling, specifically. But I really enjoyed that too. I thought it felt like, it's a weird thing in a lot of ways, but for this context, the GCW context, this was like very wholesome, I would say. Mm-hmm. Like the Thrunt.
It's about as wholesome as a Thrunt can get.
As weird as it is to say that at the end of the day. But in this very, very specific context, I think it's a wholesome thing at the end of the day. That's why it worked. The next match, we had the aforementioned Maki Ito in a singles match here versus Becca. Becca, all caps, but also all numbers as well. You have the 3 in the middle. Very edgy here. But I'd say I was impressed by her wrestling, actually, in this match. We did another one of my moves as well. We have to give her props with multiple times, actually, with the 450 splash. She went here. But Maki Ito would not grant it to her. She kept dodging it, kept getting out of the way. And then ended up locking in the submission on Becca, getting the tap out. A legit tap out, not the ref stoppage. I like this match. I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be. The crowd was so into Ito here. But I thought they actually wrestled good. Like when it came time. I thought it was good.
No, so Becca, like admittedly this past year I've fallen out with a lot of wrestling. Like 2021, I watched 2,700 matches from like 80 different companies pretty much. Yeah. And I was so tapped in everything from like, Action to New South to Beyond to fucking Limitless. And I pretty much fell off like all of Southeast and Northeast wrestling over the past year. And, it's unfortunate because that's when I've seen the names of, Alec Price, Becca, and others start to really rise. And this was the first time I've ever watched a Becca match. And like, so all I knew going in was that the sort of story behind is Becca has a pop gimmick and, Maki Ito's the idol, right? Yeah. So I thought it was going to be a total character. Like there's going to be a sing off. There's going to be all these things. And this was my favorite straight wrestling match of the entire weekend. I thought this was great. Like I could not. Becca is an incredible, incredible wrestler. Like, after this match, I was like, outside of Billy Starks, the only person that I think I would say reminds me, and even Starks is so different, but I would say Becca's the first person since Chris Stat left the Indies to have that feeling for me. Like, just every single move hits hard as fuck, technically sound, like it all looked great. Great in-ring work, like just character work, interactions with the audience. Like she didn't do the whole 2 count, I'm going to pull my hair out, Ruby Riot phase, all this stuff. Like she was on Ito to win this match. And, great Maki Ito matches are fucking great. And Ito did she did all of her best work in this too. Like when, like even her typical comedy spots with the crying and Becca like that were great. This was definitely the biggest surprise for me over the whole weekend. Because like I said, I was expecting just sort of pretty much just a joke match. And this was awesome. I'm a Becca head. So.
Yeah, Becca. I'm still new, but I'm definitely a Becca fan after this match. I thought she wrestled good.
And B3 for life.
Yeah, B3. That's right. Great selling too at the end of the Ito special, which Ito won with. And I thought it was a really good match overall there. So good stuff there. And then we have, again, a totally different style of match, but again, a singles match. Dragon Kid versus Commander here. Obviously, heavy lucha influence. Commander, one of the new, kind of guys that have branched out in America and been popular of the Mexican scene, something I'm obviously a big fan of, Lucha Libre and Mexican style itself. And DK is like a legend in Dragon Gate. He was one of my guys when I first started watching them, 10, 15 years ago or whenever. They really went out here. They did a lot of good stuff here. And I like that they tried to have a little bit of a story here with DK going after Commander's legs. Like, hey, like you're kind of where I was at 20 years ago. So I need to slow you down. Even though I'm the high flying guy usually. He came in. There was a wild move where Commander did his rope walk into the senton bomb. DK was firing up a little bit here. They had a little bit of a strike battle even. And then he fired back with this, surfboard attempt here. And they really went at it back and forth. DK went for the 619 Tiger Feint kick, but it didn't really work. They ended up hitting this wild Hurricane Rana from the top rope for a great near fall. I thought that was like a great moment. Mm-hmm. But in the end, he ended up hitting the rope walk into the shooting star press for the win. And I thought it was a really strong match for what you would expect out of these two. In this day, it's exactly what you wanted. Spots, and I thought DK actually – he didn't ground Commander, but I thought he added a layer of psychology that made him better than usual.
Totally agreed across the board. Like, being conditioned to these wild GCW shows, I was expecting pretty much, Dragon Kid to go the same, just to go one-on-one with Commander, nonstop, constant flying, high spots. So I thought the limb work was really welcomed. And, I don't know, the explosion of Commander so quickly, because again, it's someone, okay, I don't watch, much Mexican wrestling outside of like the big shows, which I really should. So he's someone that, you know, exploded on my radar, I feel like 6 months ago or whenever, like a year, whenever he came in, and now he's already like fighting Dragon Kid. And it's weird to have like a dream match with someone that like I've only known about for a year. And I think it speaks to just how good some of these rising talents are as well. And again, like it's a lot of just the beautiful history and language of pro wrestling that serves as the background story for this match before it even begins, right? Like, Dragon Kid is the result of Commander, who is the result of Dragon Kid in that sort of weird way, and how their styles and characters, similarities, etc., is sort of just passed through time, you know, and wrestling the way that Mexican wrestling influenced Dragon Gate, and in turn Dragon Gate has re-influenced others, right? Yeah. So I felt like it just came really full circle here. I don't know. I maybe a couple more minutes would have been nice, but also it was just cool. Like probably my favorite part was just seeing Dragon Kid have a fucking blast. He was smiling the whole time.
Oh yeah, like, I'm really into this.
Yeah,
that's kind of a problem with some of the GG shows. The crowd hasn't been super hot lately, for whatever reason. But here the GCW crowd really was into him and everything going on here. And I was honestly like, at this point, this is really where I was thinking, man, I'm really enjoying this show. Like this is a good show here. Like 4 for 4, really. It's like at least 3 or 4. You know, the front match worked in context. It wasn't everyone's cup of tea, and it wasn't really mine, but I give it a pass in context. The other 3 I actively liked. And then the next match happened, the GCW World Title here. Now, here's a question I have for you before we talk about this match. Where is the World Title in terms of, like, prestige in the company? Like, is it above or – I mean, clearly on this show is below the other titles, both the tag team and the ultraviolent. Is it always below the ultraviolent, or is it like you know, you can – like BJW, like so the strong title is kind of the main title at the moment.
It's so hard to say. So like a quick rundown on the GCW title scene. They didn't have their tag titles for like 2.5 years because of COVID, because Mazzisos were the champs and couldn't go anywhere. So they didn't even have tag titles until like 1.5 years ago. The ultraviolent title was created randomly during WrestleMania weekend like 2 years ago when ICW debuted their title. It's just like a response to it. Because at the same time, GCW had the Extreme title, which has sort of just disappeared. And then they have the world title, which was definitely the #1 title. I mean, it was Nick Gage was champion for 730 something days. It was like Okada and Kobashi. And he dropped it to Ricky Shane Page, who held it for a long time. Gage held it again, still #1 in the company. Then he dropped it to Cardona, still #1. Then he dropped it to Moxley. And interestingly enough, I would say when Moxley became GCW World Champion is when it became its #2 title. And that's purely for the reason that Moxley couldn't wrestle as much as Alex Colon was as the ultraviolent champion, who was main eventing shows, all of these shows, right? So, and GCW hardcore fans, you know, GCW started as a deathmatch wrestling company. So I think that no matter what, their shows like are always going to be like the deathmatch shows are pretty much always the biggest. Yeah, now it's, you know, Gage was champion again after he beat Moxley. He was still defending it. It was pretty much positioned as the #1 title again. They gave it to Masha, and then it's one of those things, like I said, where it's this inability to book, like, I don't know, the women. And there was like the second Masha won the title, I think she had just a couple defenses. Like, let me look real quick. I'm on Cage. Oh, no, she had a few. Damn, I'm totally wrong. But so I take that back. But, you know, this being positioned on the card right here, I just knew it was going to be bullshit. Like, there was going to be some bullshit finish.
I hated this match. Like, I thought it was one of like the worst on the 2 shows.
Ooh, okay.
Like
I'm excited to talk about it.
This or the thrusting match on the first show. Or maybe the women's match. But to me, there was so much nonsense here. Like, there are people running out left and right. Akira was here, coming in there. It's like there was multiple interferences coming in there. Steph came out at the end. It's like, man, maybe, again, I'm the type of fan that will hate this no matter what, even if I'm a fan of a company, to be honest with you, so I won't even give it that, because I don't care what company it is. I'm so over these style of matches with the interference and everything, the referee getting pulled back, and all that stuff. I didn't need that crap in my wrestling, and I didn't like it here either. It's a shame because Masha, obviously a very talented wrestler, and Blake, he's gotten a lot of positive reviews for his heel character here, and he's a guy that can do a lot. But to me, I didn't enjoy this at all. What did you?
No, this wrong winner for sure. The way that Blake won the title was, and again, this is kind of the booking here where it's like you're shooting yourself in the fucking foot. So. Yeah, Rena wins Tournament of Survival, so the next night she gets to challenge Masha for the world title in the Cage of Survival. How does that match end? Blake Christian walks in and cashes in his thing and pins him. It's just one of those fucking things where it just sounds so categorically stupid, and yet they did it. And then here as well, it's like the experiment's worn off. GCW is... I think they're a fun matchmaking promotion, but I really, really have not liked their stories outside of the Ricky Shane Page Gage one.
Yeah.
They just work a lot off heat rather than long-term storytelling, if that makes sense. So someone like Cardona was able to weave long-term storytelling in it, right? But with Blake, it's just shit finished, like a evil House of Torture thing at the end of each show, pretty much, and that's their form of long-term storytelling.
Yeah.
And it just gets aggressively old after a certain point. And this was the moment where you needed to switch the title. And now that Masha lost, I don't really know what the direction is for it, because what makes sense is Masha and Steph match now, but that happened at Spring Break already for the title. So, yeah, I will say, though, I liked this match a lot until the interruption started. Masha is so great at intergender matches, just wrestling in general.
Yeah.
Anytime she starts wrestling, I'm always like, that's right, you've trained with Marvelous. And Blake's just a dick. And if he needed to fulfill this role here, cool. But he's one of those heel champions that it feels like I don't know, like Sheamus 515, right? It's not that we hate him, it's that we simply just don't enjoy seeing them.
Yeah.
And I think that those get confused sometimes. But yeah, I was really bummed out. Once it started getting overbooked, it was really, again, like any type of pro wrestling like that, especially in a world title match, it's one of those things where I'm like, it just I don't know, it's a big red flag in terms of you couldn't think of anything else.
Exactly. It's a holdover from stuff 40 years ago in wrestling. When are we going to move on? At the end of the day, I don't know. I hope for the best for this title run, and I agree with you. Talent-wise, both of them I like. They'd be among the top performers to me if I were listening to that, especially Masha right now doing a lot of good things. But the match just didn't work for me overall. And it's one of those things where it happens. Not everything's going to be for everybody. The next match was a match I know you're looking forward to talking about. The trios match here, where it had Los Macizos and Jimmy Lloyd. They took on Alec Price, Cole Radrick, and Shane Mercer, who was definitely in this match. They would not take that away from me. They Shane Mercer Respect Army right now. They had the other teams were Dante Leon, Ninja Mac, and Joey Janela, and Jack Cartwheel, Arez, and Gringo Loco. So this match,
you have a whole play-by-play of this, right?
I don't have a play-by-play. The one thing I'll say, the one spot that stood out. I mean, there was so much. Everybody did a lot, but Charlie did this, what I could best describe as a Sasuke special into a destroyer, like a flip pile driver, yes, which was mind-blowingly awesome. I was like, this is insane. even the referee did a flip pile driver, and on Joey Janela here, the crowd went nuts. And again, if this happened in a normal company, I would say this is so stupid. But in this context of GCW that I'm watching it, I thought, okay, this is nuts, but it's also awesome at the same time. So I really just turned my brain off for this match. There was just all kinds of stuff here, pretty much. Cartwheel was insane doing it here. It was Cartwheel actually that did that Sasuke special into the pile driver, which was just insane.
If it makes you feel better, I think Charlie Cartwheel is a much cooler name than Jack Cartwheel.
Right, Starboy Charlie and Jack Cartwheel. That's a Charlie Cartwheel there. But man, what a move that was, though. I was so impressed by it, and there was all kinds of stuff going on here. I'm sure you probably have a lot there. There's a spot where they all did submissions to each other, and then Secret Place shoved his thumb at Arez's nether region there. So again, it's like on a normal show, I would say this sucks, but on this particular show, I thought, okay, this totally fits. They're accomplishing everything they want to do with this insane match, and in the end, it was awesome. At the end, and Gringo Loco got the win. He pinned Mercer actually again. Yeah.
This was fun. Like this to me felt like the ultimate love letter to the old PWG multi-mans. The match began with all 12 competitors doing a cartwheel in and around the ring.
Yeah.
It was just one of those moments where when you're at a live wrestling show, that's just like childlike feeling, and it's so healthy. It's wonderful. Like the big sequence that stands out is them essentially doing a series of, I think it was like 8 or 9 destroyers by the end. But, the way it starts out is one person hits a normal Canadian destroyer, and then someone hits a step-up one or a springboard one, right?
Yeah.
And then the setup for each one gets longer and longer to where I'm almost forgetting, like, okay, so they're done with the destroyer thing now. And then they hit another destroyer up until I think you said it was like the Sasuke special destroyer.
That was so good. Such an impressive move.
What's funny is like the complaints we've had about Blake Christian and Masha, and then the whole like ref hitting a destroyer, those both happened in MJF and Adam Cole.
Hey, listen, GCW inspiring right now. Could that have been what it is?
They did it first. That's hilarious. Honestly, this was just a total blast. There's really no way to sell it other than it's just one of those matches you have to watch. It's like, it really is pro wrestling in the sense of a bunch of kids, just doing crazy shit with their friends. The only thing that I thought sucked was the ending, just because it was Shane Mercer. Shane Mercer was like he was like threatening the ref or something, and then he's like, you're all good. And then he turned around and Gringo just hit him, and then he got pinned, and I was like, damn, okay. It was just a very flat ending for an otherwise electric match. But also, if you put me in a room and you said, hey, book this finish, I don't know if I could. So
it had to end with the destroyer.
Yeah.
Some sort, which it did. He did hit him with the destroyer at the end. So at least there was some totally bizarre and nonsensical psychology used in this to have all the destroyers in there. Like I said, if you just watch it for what it is, there's a ton of fun to be had with this match. I greatly enjoyed this personally. As again, like if you try to apply normal wrestling logic to it, then yes, you're going to find a lot to complain about. But if you just watch it for what it is, it was like a lot of fun. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. And that move by Cartwheel had to be one of the best moves of the year to me so far. And they don't really do that a lot with like the Observer Awards. It used to be they would pick like a singular move kind of as the best move of the year. But now it's just like, well, the Rainmaker or something like that will just be the move. But to me, this was like one of the best singular moves of the whole year. I loved it. What if they had done that in the next match with Santana Jackson and Haley Dillon? I know you wanted to talk about this too, so I will allow you to take the lead on this one here. Santana
No.
Jackson. Tell us what you think.
I've seen Santana Jackson live, so I skipped this because I'm so sorry. No, once I saw him come out, I was like, I need to finish this. So
you couldn't bring yourself to it.
I couldn't. Did he do the thing where like he puts his hands up to start like the grapple or whatever, and then he put it down, and then he did the slide. He hit all the moves, the moonwalk DDT or whatever. He's fun. What did you think?
This was insane and ridiculous, but I thought it was just completely just nuts. Like a Michael Jackson impersonator is this man's gimmick at the end of the day. There was a spot where Dylan grabbed his hat and just stomped on it. So super heel stuff there. He hit the dance into the elbow, like the people's elbow cross with Michael Jackson moves, pretty much here. At one point, Dylan actually went for the Rainmaker, but Jackson turned it into a spear. And then he hit the moonwalk into the DDT for the win, which I thought was awesome. Like, this was so funny.
Santana Jackson doesn't have a cage match page either, so we got to start fixing these things.
What a shame.
See, okay. Like, Santana Jackson matches are fun, but again, I'm like, okay, I'm 3 hours into this show.
Yeah.
And this wasn't on the card, so I feel bad for not watching. I'm very happy you liked it, though. Like, Santana Jackson is definitely one of those, like, GCW is a traveling carnival. It's one of the fun attractions.
And like, the first 2 to 3 times, this will be awesome. And then by the 7th time, you'll be like, okay, enough of this. Like, you know, I get the feeling this gimmick was. But for now, I thought the Moonwalk DDT, brilliant. I loved it. World Tag Team title matchup next. The East-West Express here, which is, of course, Jordan Oliver and Nick Wayne. They took on the Freedoms team of Takashi Sasaki and Toru Sugera. And we saw a title change here, actually. You know, despite everything, we saw the East-West Express come in here. I thought that it was kind of interesting, but also kind of underwhelming in a weird way. I don't know what your thoughts on it were, but I thought that this match never really got to the next gear that I wanted. They did use some weapons here with the steel chair and stuff. In fact, that was kind of like the finish of the match with the package pile driver to the chair on Nick Wayne. Here, so they did a lot of stuff here, but I never thought it really got to like super exciting. Maybe we were spoiled by that crazy match we saw where the energy was so high, then you had this ridiculous Santana Jackson match, and that this wasn't able to really follow up, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely suffers from, like, you know, pacing on multiple levels, both in match and just in show, but this was a weird one. For some reason, like, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, no way, Nick Wayne's going to do glass? And then I was like, no, there's absolutely no way that Nick Wayne is going to do a death match. And then when Toru came out and I saw his outfit, I was like, yeah, this is just a normal match.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so this match felt way more like a set piece than anything else in terms of, like, potentially Nick Wayne's send-off from GCW. Assuming that he's done now with independence. And then, you know, it served as a transition into the main event. And then as a way to, you know, put heat on the GCW versus Freedoms feud. That said, it was just a really weird matchup on paper. I don't think either team really gelled well together. I don't think that the story was really there to gel either. Like, you know, I don't remember much in the way of the actual wrestling in the match, up until, you know, when Jack runs in for the interference. And at that point, I mean, again, much like Masha, I would almost say it was more egregious here than it was in Masha and Blake, because at least in Masha and Blake, I think Steph and Akira ran in when the ref was down, but, like, the ref was up and Jack's just, like, cheering these dudes. So I don't know. It just felt very weird. It seemed like they had to do like, hey, we got to send off Nick Wayne, put some belts on the line in this feud, and then also we need something cool to work itself into the main event. And then they're like, tag title match. And yeah, it fulfilled those points, but I would watch everything in Blake and Masha again up until the interference, but
yeah,
nothing from this really stuck out to me, which if this is Wayne's send off, that's a bummer because yeah, it felt like East West Express was absolutely the background set pieces or whatever for this. That said, though, I loved the transition into the main event.
That was a great idea. Like, I liked how that all worked out. Again, like, this is very, like, out of the ECW playbook, where one match bleeds into the other. They've done that countless times in the Heyman style. So, again, another great reference there. Before we get to the main event, I'll ask you one question about this tag title. What did you think about the title change here?
So, I think GCW is, again, like it's a show or a promotion where it's more about the matches and the titles sometimes. If this is back in the day, I'd be like, oh shit, well, we're not going to see the tag titles in forever. But, going into October, this makes sense. War Games night 1, night 2, give us Maceisos versus Sasaki and Sugiura, or Janela and Rec versus them. There's a lot of really fun matchmaking that you can do with it. I like Sasaki and Sugiura as champs. I think, definitely it was going to be Harada and Sugiura. We're going to get Soul Meat as champs, so that's a bit of a disappointment, but rest up Harada. It's cool. It's just, again, like this has the same energy as MJF and Adam Cole winning the ROH tag title belts. I'm like, all right, now what? And why?
That's their job to follow up the why and the how and the who's next. Like who will win the title, but hopefully they get there. But
I hope they defend it a few times before October, like that we get it on some Freedom shows. That would be cool.
Yes, I agree with that for sure. I think it would help out a lot. Like you said, with them going to Japan in a couple months, I think you'll get that as well for sure. The whole company. So the starting of the main event was awesome. Rena ran out. All this was going on. She immediately just destroyed Jack with the light tubes. She had a ton of them. She smashed them. The crowd loved this. This felt hectic and crazy again. Again with the carving with the tube and stuff. She hit she didn't hit, but she locked in the ball claw there on Jack too. One of the most devastating moves.
Absolutely.
But Jack recovered somehow. Here he came in. He came in with the chair. There was all this glass. And I thought this was like a really unique spot actually, where he like gathered up the glass and then threw Rena into it face first. I thought that was like wild there. Like I was very surprised to see something like that. More light tube stuff, which I said before, I'm not a huge fan. She did smash him again in the balls with the light tube this time. So that's clearly a strategy here at the end of the day. Jack hit this Uranagi into the light tubes, which looked wild. They did a splash again with the light tubes. Rena's wasn't as good as Jack's in the night 1 main event, I will say, going in there. You had the panes of glass going in there. They teased a big suplex into the glass, but instead she turned it around, hit the splash mountain, but that was only a kick out. And then she ended up getting in a flash pin for the win here. So I liked a lot of this match. I think there was more afterwards as well, because like everybody ran in to set up the War Games, pretty much there. The match itself, I thought was good, but again, the opening made me think we were going to get something like really special, and I don't think it really reached that heights by the end.
This was one of my more favorite U.S. arena matches.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, but I didn't think it. I thought we were gonna get something like, whoa, like this is gonna be something crazy, like
An all-timer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then by the end, it was like, okay, that was a good, worthy main event. Again, I didn't like the finish. I thought it was a flat finish with the Splash pin. Like, why couldn't she just pin him after the Splash Mountain? It looked great.
Okay, yeah. So, I did like Tremont and Jack more than this. This was probably my second favorite death match. I put it like right in front of Toru and Murdoch. But I do like how Rena didn't beat Jack. She survived him.
Yeah, that's
I did like that aspect. And I think like she pinned Toru, I think, in one of the tournaments in GCW. And then I think she like, cause what I'm looking at right now, so now she's pinned Jack. And I think one of the only people she hasn't pinned now is Kasai in America.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if that's what they're working towards too. I did think Jack was going to win there with the submission though. Like him putting out Tremont, really I for sure thought that Rena was losing. I was like, damn, she's going to have to get the title back. Because they're also doing the GCW Karakian show, right, in October after War Games.
And that's what I said about the tag titles, that I think that will lead them to defend it more now that they have that show.
And like, I don't know. I was, as like a Rena fan, like for this title reign, this was a really, really big one. But there have been better ones. Like, I think Rena's best match in this title reign has been against Casey Kirk. It's just a phenomenal match. But it was just really, really cool to see her get the pin on Jack. And Jack, like, this was some of his best heel work that I've seen. Like, because when I started watching Freedoms, it was right at the beginning of Toru's reign. So I think Jack, like, until he joined or started Empire Ruler Ends, was pretty much kind of like your generic babyface. So to see him become such a bastard here, like, he was just ruthless. And yeah, it's really all about the angle after again, to where
that's true.
Part of me feels like there was no big homecoming weekend match, really. Like, if you're putting both of these cards on paper and you say, what is the match that represents the company this weekend? And to me, it's Blake and Masha, and that feels like such an afterthought.
Yeah.
Because everything else is pretty much, not like, because I wouldn't say Rena is a homegrown GCW talent, right? She is an attraction star. Yeah. Much like a Mike Bailey and Maki Ito, but all of your, quote unquote homegrown talents, none of them were really in any prominent roles on this show. So more than anything, this felt like the precursor to GCW versus Freedoms, and just a long weekend setup for that. That said, I guess, like, I liked all the death matches. I'm a big B3 for life now. I'm a Looney Tooney. And I liked, Leon Slater, Alec Price, and the Maki Ito match versus Becca a lot. What about you? Oh, and the scrambles were fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed those. I thought the ending angle was really well done, actually. Where the crowd, again, they added so much to this where they were going crazy. They did a thing where they tried to keep everybody apart, and the crowd was like, no, like, let them fight, pretty much. Gage obviously had the big promo at the end to set up the War Games match. And, that set up the end with, I'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about the shows. I definitely thought, to me, the main event of the second show probably was my favorite death match. Even though I didn't think it was as great as maybe I thought it was going to be at the start. And I still didn't I wish it had been a more definitive finish, but again, maybe there's more story to that, and maybe that's just me. So take my criticisms with a grain of salt, everybody. I will say that right there. But the second show, to me, I definitely thought the second show was better. I really, honestly, I thought everything was basically either actively good, or like the front match accomplished what it needed to. It was perfect for the context of it. Same thing for the 12-man match. The only thing I thought under-delivered was the tag title match. Overall, it wasn't as good as it could be, as well as the world title. That was the only match I didn't like on there for the reasons I said earlier. But then you look at Commander, DK, Ito, and Becca really surprised me in a good way. I thought Deppen had a much better match this night instead of night one. On night one, it was a fine show. Again, not as bad as I might have feared with all the death matches. But I thought the night two was a lot better. On night one, I enjoyed Slater and Price. The scramble matches were fun on there as well. And the opener, too, I thought was very effective. The death matches on night one were all okay, but again, I had issues, and I definitely, if they had been spread out among 3 shows, I think I would have liked all 3 better. But because they were one after the other, I think that took away from all of them. Just my opinion. So yeah, that night 2 definitely impressed me though at the end. I really liked it actually by the end, and I gotta say the ending angle came across so well, where I was like actively looking forward to this War Games match. And there are some guys that I really wasn't a big fan of, pretty much. So you've got everybody brawling out again, as I said. Gage did the thing there. You've got Kasai, Takeda, Sasaki, Sugiura, and Jack all on Team Freedoms.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's
cool.
That's a super team of Freedoms deathmatch people, pretty much there. Did they announce who was on the GCW team?
Yeah, so Team GCW is Rena, Nick Gage, John Wayne Murdoch, and then Ciclope and Miedo Extremo.
Oh, yeah, see, look at that. So all of the best guys pretty much in deathmatch are in this. And War Games, I hope it can pay off in a good way, because a lot of times you see these War Games matches in the modern era, and they aren't that good. Like the stipulation, nobody works to it right. I think you want to bring back the good old days of the Cage of Death, like in CZW.
Oh, they're stupid. These War Games matches they do, like someone almost dies each year. They are. Yeah. It's like, oh, hey, we're gonna put a scaffold on top of the cage and fall off that. So it's very Cage of Death aligned.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we need. See, if you've seen those matches, that's what I'm looking for out of this War Games one here. So the ending angle, the announcements, everything, I was like I said, when I first started watching these shows, I was afraid I was going to come on here and be like, this sucks so much. And I'm like, why did you make me watch this, Nello? And then at the end of it, I thought, this War Games could be kind of hot at the end. It's like, this could be on at the end. Like, I'm into this going in there. And like I said, most of the second show I liked pretty, like straight up pretty much. So, again, it's not anything I would say. There were no 5-star matches or anything like that, or even like 4-star matches would be a stretch for me on like a lot of them. But there was just a lot of good stuff, variety. The crowd was hot. It felt like a unique promotion as well, which I like that it wasn't so homogenized. So everything kind of is there, but I thought that it was able to stand on its own 2 feet, and I thought it was like night 2 especially was a good show. Night 1, like I said, my expectations were low, but I didn't hate night 1 as much as I thought, and night 2 I actually kind of liked by the end, and I was kind of interested in War Games. So when we get that, we get back to that, and we do that again in October when they do these, I'll actually be coming in like a positive mindset next time. So I think I'm kind of into it. So good stuff. I got to give GCW, especially night 2, thumbs up on the homecoming.
Yeah, no, night 2, like I said, it just felt like it righted a lot of the things that didn't quite click. Night 1, the feud coming out of this is a deathmatch fan, pretty much like the Super Bowl. Like this is as cool as it gets, really. I'm very stoked, and I think what I've appreciated about this the most is all of the different ways we've been able to discuss pro wrestling throughout this show. Because there's so many different ways that the talent and the company approaches it on these shows, from deathmatch to, something where like Dragon Kid stopping Commander with limb work, to the minds of wrestling, to just characters, everything. So I'm grateful to B3 for life. I'm a Looney Tooney. So yeah, I would say honestly recommending any of the death matches. the crazy scramble from night 2, and I would say Becca versus Maki Ito. Yeah, just a surprisingly great match.
Yeah, I agree. I would say the main event of night 2, Becky and Ito and Commander and DK. But also the scramble match is like, if you can watch a match without putting logic to it, just watch it for what it is, you will enjoy that. If you think about it too hard, you're probably not going to like it overall, but it's still a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm very happy to do this, something I wasn't expecting to do at all when, this show came about, but you've added another flavor. You're like an expert chef right now. You're like Gordon Ramsay style of death matches right now. Here, you're bringing it all here. I love the cool stuff we talked about with the representation too, of the LGBTQ plus that they brought into the table here. That was a lot of cool stuff there, a lot of fun. Really happy that we did it, and I just want to say, hey, thank you once again for giving me this idea and taking the time to do it. And if you want to say anything to the folks out there, the spotlight is yours.
Shout out Gabe and Carly. They were front row for Homecoming both nights. So it looked like they had a blast. And yeah, Happy Humble Burger Farm on Steam. And that's it. That's it for me.
Yeah, send me the link. I'm going to put that up on the Cage Match page when we put that up on there. Like I said, I'm an expert advertiser right now. It's in my blood as a wrestler, okay, at the end of the day. But yeah, check us out. We'll put all the links on Twitter and stuff. I've got to help my nanny out, my great-grandma out with some medical stuff when we get off the air. But after that, I'm going to make a Wrestle Update X page on there. And we'll do some more stuff as well, talking some live tweeting, some stuff coming up. All in, we're going to have a review very soon, probably tomorrow as well. So hopefully you guys all enjoy all the cool stuff we're doing on Wrestle Update right now, all of the different styles of wrestling we're talking about, all the different promotions. Follow me at Viva_0. I just want to shout out the 30th is the anniversary of Ray's death, the Joshi wrestler who I named myself after on Twitter, Viva Ray. So big shout outs to her. Rest in peace. And hopefully everybody's doing some good things out there, having some good times, doing all right. I put a thing at the start of the show, but I will say, shout out to Terry Funk, Bray Wyatt. Rest in peace to those two. I did an extended talk about Terry Funk in Japan on this. I was a guest on the Emerald Flow show on Voice of Wrestling. Me and my friend Gerard, we talked a lot about Terry Funk in Japan there. If you want to hear more about that, lots of history. It would take 1,000,000 hours to do a show about Terry Funk and all that he did there. But I just want to shout out everybody out there who passed away. Hopefully everybody listening is having some good times in a good headspace. But no matter what, we're always here for you, and we thank you so much for listening. So with that said, as always, I love you. And until next time, this has been your Wrestle Update.